annual meeting, all those good important things are happening today. The flower communion, we were going to have it later in the month, but it sort of worked out. It's today, and look how beautiful everything is. So it's so much fun. So good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills. Two things first. This is Norbert Capek. He's the gentleman, the reverend that started the flower communion. So I have his picture there. It was in the early 20s, which is why I'm dressed like this. Oh, yeah. Kind of take you back to what that was. So get all that out of the way. Today we're gathered for our annual flower communion. Some of you may be visiting for the first time today or did not know about today's flower communion. Brought extra flowers. Everyone is welcome and everyone can partake of this special ritual. Through some miracle similar to the story of the loaves and fishes, there are always flowers left over at the end of the service. This is the grace of our community. I am Kathy Atwell. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the worship associate for this morning. We are delighted to have all of you who are attending here in person and through the miracle of Zoom. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Unitarian Universalist is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. We are guided by a set of principles and written sources that encompass the many ways we've come to know and understand the world, the universe, and the divine. Our principles are important to us at UU Catskills, and we live our values on a daily basis. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. We're a welcoming congregation of the LGBTQ+ community. We're an affiliate of the Ulster Immigrant Defense Network. We have a robust social action group, and we are an active voice in the efforts to address climate change. We gratefully acknowledge the Indigenous people on whose ancestors' homeland we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their homes here today. If you'd like to contact someone at UU Catskills, please visit our website, uucatskills.org, or find and like us on Facebook and Instagram. We encourage you to read our June newsletter that is distributed through our email list and is on our website for information about upcoming events. If you're a visitor and would like to raise your hand and introduce yourself, please do. Do we have any visitors? Okay. It's all family. If you're feeling restless or have someone who is getting a bit antsy, we have a room across the hall where you can relax and still hear the service. If you're attending on Zoom, please stay for a virtual coffee break after today's service, and please stay so that you can join our annual meeting and be able to vote also through Zoom. Our Zoom hosts this week are Diane and Debbie, and they are at their home. And our tech host here in the sanctuary is Tom Hackett. I have no announcements. Other than a reminder, our annual meeting is today and starts shortly after the service. Please stay for discussion and voting. I ask you to turn off and settle into this morning as we gather here together. Our social action minute presenter this morning is Donna Schlackman.
Good morning. I am Donna Schlackman, and I use pronouns she and her. You are all here, and as well as on Zoom, invited to participate in this year's Juneteenth Festival, which is this Saturday from 1 to 6 at Academy Green in Kingston. This is a national holiday, and it marks the actual end of slavery and is a joyful celebration of freedom and of the resilience and creativity of those who literally built our nation and their ancestors. Juneteenth is another opportunity for UU Catskill people to show up. We will have an information booth and kitty tattoos, as we have done in the past. We are still in need of volunteers. Noon on this Saturday at the site of the Pine Street African Burial Ground. There will be the usual honoring of ancestor ceremony, and I highly recommend stopping there at noon if you can and participating in that. It's really pretty wonderful. So if you have any questions or want to volunteer, see me after the service. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna. I've been to the burial ground ceremony, and it's really quite inspiring. So our prelude this morning is Pink Tulips by Catherine Rowland, played by Catherine, our own Catherine Pettibon. Maddie, would you like to come up and light our chalice? I think you can do it. You're experienced. So, sweetie, here's this candle. Say our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice
in grateful, loving community, even in the darkest of times, its flame light paths, courage, justice, and hope.
And our unison affirmation, may we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings.
May we know once again
Not,
that we are not isolated,
in connections, in wonder and joy, to mystery and miracle, in the universe, in this community, and in each other. So our opening words this morning, Jenny's going to read them. Jenny Giddy, no hothouse flowers.
No Hothouse Flowers by Lisa Doge. No hothouse flowers these, bred for perfection, dyed and trimmed, and arranged to order, clothed in ribbons and bows. Not these. No, these are hardy, raw, and wild, grown under the sky. They've weathered the wind and the rain and the heat. These drew nutrients from the neighborhood soil and energy from the sun. These survived pests and disease. These grow where they were planted by loving hands, or the whim of birds, or the caprice of the breeze. These have petals washed by dew, glowing with the color of the hills, the sea, the prairies, and the rocks. Their delicate perfumes carries in it the fragrance of earth. No, not perfect these, only holy, a blessing to the eye and heart and soul.
So our first hymnal is called Sweet June Days. I picked that out because I thought, well, these are sweet June days. It's, no, I'm sorry, it's number 65. Stand if you can. It's not one we sing a lot, but. So Unitarian Universalism is a tradition with few rituals and regular other elements than any other tradition, but we do have a few. The most common ritual for us, of course, is to light the chalice. This is a ritual element that began sometime in the 1970s as UUs were inspired by the symbol that had been created originally by the Unitarian Service Committee. Another ritual we observe each year is the water communion, usually in early September as we come together at the beginning of the new church year. And this Sunday, we are coming to the end of this church year, and we will observe the and has a common meaning from the Christian tradition of the ritual of sharing consecrated bread and wine. I also love the dictionary definition of the word as the sharing and exchanging of intimate thoughts and feelings, especially when the exchange is on a mental or spiritual level. I believe that is what we are doing when we hold a communion, that we are exchanging thoughts and feelings at a spiritual level through the sharing of symbolic object. For the flower communion, the object is flowers, a perfect symbol for the unique beauty that each of us brings and how that beauty is increased by being together in community. The flower communion is older than the water communion or the chalice lighting. It was first introduced in the United Church of Prague in 1923 by their founding minister, Norbert Fabian Capek. The communion was brought to America Unitarian congregations in 1940 by Dr. Capek's wife, Maya, also an ordained minister. Maya Capek was in the US when World War II broke out and was unable to return home to Prague. That history of resistance and evil and of suffering brings brings great effort to the flower. I have the pronunciation and I can't pronounce it. Flower communion. It is a celebration of beauty, of nature, of community, but is not without a certain fierceness. Holding fast to beauty and goodness, even when we also know that there is so much wrong in the world, is a form of fierce resistance. Like the flowers themselves, we continue to bloom. So today you have brought all that you are, all that you feel, and also a flower to share in our communion. I'm going to ask Maddie, and I was going to ask more children. Jane will help, and Joyce.
I was camping and there are dance recitals.
Oh, hey, and Joyce, where's Joyce? Joyce? Where's Joyce? Joyce is going to help. Okay. So I'm going to ask the children and Joyce and Jane, the child, Joyce and Jane, to bring some flowers, grab a handful. We're going to distribute them and take something that you did not bring. And I know Reverend, or I understand, didn't know him personally, Reverend Capek did say a prayer over the flowers. I'm always hesitant, not being ordained, to offer up prayers. So we will hold all of us in our hearts and our flowers. That we could get you another one, Joanne. Some are from gardens. I raided my neighbor's garden. Permission? And I will share that we had a good Samaritan here this morning. Bill helped out a man who's, did you get his car going?
Yes.
Yes. Bill went out and helped. So we have many good Samaritans among us.
Yes. Started right.
Good. Did it just die?
I'll tell you, I'll talk later.
Maddie, do you want to take one back to Tom? So after we get the flowers distributed, Maddie and Jane will go over to the farmhouse and we will sing them out. Maddie, you get a flower too. Does your mama have one? Okay, if we all have them, we'll hold them up. We'll see how pretty all of our flowers are. So the rest of them, oh, some still have petals. Some petals are left up here. Take the big one, Casper. Oh, yeah. I can't go too far. Good. Okay. All right, so is Maddie ready to head out? As you leave this friendly place, love gives light to every face. May the kindness wish you return. So we're going to do our joys and concerns, and Bill has, it's Bill Lindsay morning. Bill is going to bring the.
I'll bring my flower.
So ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. We take this time to reflect on our joys and sorrows and acknowledge the mutual support of our community. If you would like to share something, Bill will bring the mic around and I will put a stone. We're a part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space and community. We give with the faith that together we are enough. If you wish, you can go to our website after the service and select the half-plate donation tab or mail your check to our address. We share our Sunday morning basket collection with 7 local nonprofits. And you can see those on our website for this list. And our prelude this morning is Memento? Minuetto by?
Revelation.
Yeah, say that. Catherine. So sort of as Paul Harvey used to say, and the rest of the story is, we remember the story of the flower communion celebrated by Norbert Fabian, who was the founder of the Unitarian Church of Czechoslovakia. Individuals coming together as community. It's the story shared in between that connects the flowers to radical fellowship and faithfulness that makes this simple ritual so powerful. Even in the face of fascism and a fearful future for Capek's community and for ours. Norbert Capek, 1870 to 1942, founded the Unitarian Church of Prague, Czechoslovakia in 1922. He was raised Catholic in Bohemia, present-day Czech Republic. As a teenager, he grew disheartened by the priest's cynicism and the seeming failure of rigid Catholic dogma and the authority to produce an inward, warm-hearted spirituality. Hence, at age 18, he became Baptist, and a fervent one. Soon also editor of several religious journals, a prolific writer and composer of hymns, and the founder of almost a dozen Baptist churches. He was also a visionary thinker. His convictions became increasingly liberal, even radical, influenced by his study of the past and openness of the theological ferment in the present. While studying religious history, he became convinced that the true faith of Czech people was a free faith, a spiritual practice that prized individual consciousness and pursued an ardent community life rooted in love. Around 1910, he discovered the Unitarian tradition and felt certain that it reflected the inner spirit of the Czech people. But he was not able to get support for establishing a Unitarian church. So he continued to develop his thoughts as a Baptist minister, though with increasing conflict. Catholicism had been the state religion in his homeland for years, and his writings were increasingly deemed anti-Catholic and censored. In 1914, when World War I was on the horizon and under threats of further reprisals from the government, he accepted a call to service in a small Baptist church in New York. Followed soon after a call to a larger Baptist church in New Jersey. However, Capek's writing, which voiced his concern that the Baptist tradition was becoming dogmatic in its own way, forsaking the simple call to Christ-like community freedom, led to 2 heresy trials soon after his arrival in the U.S. He was acquitted both times, but the personal sting ran deep, and in 1919, he resigned as a Baptist minister. A little over a year later, after having commissioned their 3 school-age children to sample the church Sunday schools in their New Jersey community, he and his wife joined their children at the First Unitarian Church of Essex County. From then on, at age 51, Capek's spiritual vision found a home in the Unitarian tradition. After the conclusion of the First World War, Czechoslovakia became independent, and many Czechs seized the opportunity to leave the Catholic Church. Capek and his family were among many other Czechs who decided to return from. He went intending to found a Unitarian church that might invite the Czech people to rekindle the free faith and true Christianity that he was convinced had deep roots in their past. To say he was successful would be an understatement. Already during the ocean voyage back to Prague, with many Czechs among his fellow passengers, he offered talks on the true history of Czech spirit, entwining its deep democratic spiritual linking with support from Czechoslovakia's developing democracy. Once in Prague, he set to building a church, not a structure, but a people. After beginning with small groups of a couple dozen here and there in the fall of 1921, when he led the inaugural worship service of the Prague 1922, there were over 1,200 people in attendance. By the following year, Capek wrote, there were days when the large church where they rented meeting space, where comfortably holds 3,000 people, was filled to capacity, and there were many who could not get in. And on Tuesday evenings, 700 gathered to hear the sermon a second time and discuss it. Successful, and then some. Now, back to the flower communion. In June 1923, as his congregation was preparing to take its summer holiday from worship, Capek wanted a ritual to bind them together across their deep diversity. His community included people of all social classes with their varied ethnic, educational, and religious backgrounds. At the time, many Unitarian churches still practice Holy Communion. But he knew this wouldn't be a ritual to unite his congregation. His community included both ex-Catholics, Protestants, whose views of or reaction to Holy Communion would be very different. It also included ex-Jews and persons who had no church background at all, who had become intrigued with Capek's energy and vision. He needed a ritual that was without any other religious associations and accessible to everyone. He created the flower communion and first instituted it on June 24th, 1923. Inviting everyone to bring a simple flower and place it in a large vase as they entered the church. Capek preached about the common unity and heartfelt fellowship, regardless of race, class, or other distinctions. A unity grounded in God who loved them and who took joy in their common flourishing. A unity grounded in shared purpose they had experienced over the past year, fashioning a community knit together by simple friendships and shaped by divine love. He reminded them that each of the gathered flowers had unique needs to grow and flourish, as well as unique beauty and gifts to offer, that each flower had a dignity and glory bestowed by God. Then he encouraged the congregation to come forward and each take a different flower than the one they brought. These were to be taken home, and in doing so, he asked them to imagine themselves carrying home and caring for the needs of one another. And regarding with awe the God-given glory of their fellow congregants. A simple ritual, except when practiced against the backdrop of rebirthing the spirituality of the Czech people and amid the shared experience of fashioning a community through the practice of fellowship and love. In that context, it proved a ritual that Capek himself described as so powerful and impressive that I never experienced anything like it. In 1940, Capek's wife Maya, who had been ordained in 1926, brought the flower communion to the United States, where it quickly spread among Unitarian churches here. Today, it is likely the most widely celebrated ritual among Unitarians around the world. But it is in the rest of the story that the becomes clear. For nearly 20 years, Capek persevered in his vision, though not without some turmoil. There were frictions at times with the more conservative and perhaps envious Catholics and Protestant churches, as well as occasional episodes of infighting within the congregation amid bouts of financial desperation. Still, the Unitarian Church of Prague was at one point the largest Unitarian congregation in the world. 300 or more children and youth were enrolled in the church Sunday school. The congregation sponsored church leadership training schools and an extensive community counseling program. And then the Nazis came knocking, literally. First in 1938 at the nation's border, when Hitler demanded the annexation of Czechoslovakia's southern territory. France and Great Britain, with the silent assent of the US, decided it was a sacrifice worth making to preserve peace. Rather than answer Czechoslovakians' call for defense, they pressured the Czech government to succeed the land. When the government felt it had no choice but to accept Hitler's term, the protest by the Czech populace was fierce, and Čapek was with the protesters. Preaching the following Sunday, September 25, 1938, he declared, "We Czechs are becoming the backbone of the history of humanity. We are today the only nation in the whole of Europe that is ready to resist oppression. Confronting our descendants, we will never have to feel ashamed of the fact that as a small nation in the middle of Europe, we were ready to defend human dignity, freedom, and justice from violence, lies, and lawlessness." Did he really imagine that his community and its flower communion was a match for fascism? In the following year, 1939, the whole Czechoslovakia was in German control. In March, the American Unitarian Association wrote to Čapek offering him a minister-at-large position in the US with a stipend sufficient to maintain himself and his wife until he could draw a pension in 1941. His response, tendered almost immediately, remarked on his happiness at the offer of economic security. He said, it's the first assurance since 1921 that I've had an economic background for more than 1 year. After that, he politely asserting that he could not leave his people in this moment, no matter what sufferings might come. Čapek now found himself ministering to a congregation, really a national community that felt abandoned by the world, but was united within itself. Life in the congregation in Prague continues with fervor, as well as with 6 mission centers it sponsored around the country. Unable to buck the German occupation, the people fueled their inward fellowship with all the energy they had. Meyer reported that the flower communion was being celebrated both in Prague and in its mission. Now a mystical embrace of dignity, beauty, freedom in the very shadow of death. Because of the crowds that came to hear Čapek preach, the Gestapo agents also attended regularly, listening for any covert message he might be trying to pass to his congregation, phrases of national pride into his message. When Čapek turned 70 in 1940, his congregation planned a festive celebration. More than 700 people came, including noted guests from other churches and many organizations. More than 100 congratulatory letters and telegrams arrived. But the showstopper was a gift he received from the church's board of trustees, no doubt delivered, apart from the public fanfare, a shortwave radio. As with all radios sold in German-occupied lands, it carried a tag that warned users that listening to foreign broadcasts was a crime punishable by death. From then on, it might be said that Čapek flirted daily with death, as it became his routine to listen to BBC or the Voice of America broadcast each day for the next 9 months. It's not clear how widely Čapek shared his news he gleaned from these broadcasts, though it's likely that they shaped the tone of his preaching. In any case, the following March, 1941, the Nazis came knocking again, this time on his door. Čapek and his 28-year-old daughter Zora were arrested and charged with listening to and disseminating foreign broadcasts. Čapek himself was also charged with high treason on account of his public preaching. After an initial trial, they were held an entire year before the appeal was heard in April 1942. Both were found guilty of listening to foreign broadcasts, but the court determined that Čapek's preaching did not rise to the level of treason. Zora was sentenced to 18 months. Chopik himself, on account of his age, was given a 12-month sentence. Zora served her sentence and survived the war. But Chopik's sentence was received at the Gestapo headquarters in Prague. It was ignored. Ignored is too light. The case officer wrote on the file, "Send this prisoner to Dachau. His return is unwished." It seems likely that the death sentence came in retaliation for the assassination of the Nazi official overseeing the German occupation of Czechoslovakia. The Gestapo were vivid and executions of opinion leaders were rampant. On July 5th, 1942, Čapek arrived in Dachau. He remained there for a little over 3 months, put to hard labor. The only soon after the war ended came from a Catholic priest who had been with Čapek in Dachau. He described their living conditions as brutal. Then he recounted Čapek with awe, an encouragement to others at all times, sharing his meager rations, bringing a great number of others to God there in the camp, a man whose countenance carried in it a higher power. Earlier on March 31st, 1942, the day before their final trial, Čapek was passed a piece of paper to his daughter Zora, containing his final poem. In it, he declares, "I have lived amidst eternity." Perhaps it was his own way of acknowledging the higher power that so framed his being. The handful of letters he was allowed to send in those final months. He reported that he had composed several new songs, calling them some of his best, although these songs died with him. In one, he declared his own theological thinking. The goal of higher religion is a harmonious, strong, confident, active, created, loving personality in harmony with nature, with humanity, and the spirit of all life. On October 12, 1942, Norbert Čapek was put on an invalid transport and taken to another site to be murdered by poisonous gas. And so it ends here. The flower communion is such a simple ritual and so much more. Unfazed by peril, undaunted before damage, an unassuming ritual bearing the beauty and truth. We are uniquely gifted. We belong to one another. Creating community is birthing joy in a perilous and damaged future. These truths may seem no stronger than a sprig of lilac, but I tell you, they are priceless treasures. And these words were taken from Čapek's Life and Flower Communion on the internet and by David Weiss. So our song, Our World is One World. I thought it seemed kind of appropriate that, we are all so connected. Our world is one world, 134. Our world is one, what teaches flower communion blessing by Thomas Rhodes will be read by Bill Vince.
Flower communion by Thomas Rhodes. Within our hands we hold the resurrection of the world, transient of intimate value, like ourselves. Too often we seek permanence and perfection, resisting change, blind to our shortcomings. We become caught up in petty issues and routine activities of our daily lives. But may these flowers serve as a reminder as they allow themselves to open to the heavens. Despite their imperfections, they still have integrity. And though they are transient, they contain the seeds of transcendence, like ourselves. Let us then also open ourselves to the mystery and wonder, fretting not about small mishaps or even, for now, great misfortune. For the resurrection of the world is at our fingertips, the resurrection.
Just in time, the batteries died. So I'm going to extinguish the chalice with your help. We extinguish the chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Go in peace, but don't go too far. And when do we want to try to pull back together? Where'd she go?